Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Fireside Chat with Kimberly. It seems my lighting is weird. Sorry about that. Thank you to Terra Seed, the sponsor for this week's talks. Prize packs for this month's contest have been graciously donated by Hodo Foods, Crofters Organics, Follow Your Heart, Cinnaholic, Orgain, Revolution Gelato, and Terra Seed. I invite my viewers to enter the monthly contest at virtualvegfest.com and click on the contest tab for details. Entering is super easy just by liking and or subscribing to our social media and Virtual VegFest YouTube channel. You're entered to win one of 7 prize packs. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we are talking about alternatives to dissection. Um, I'd love for you to put in the comments if you were a student who had to dissect animals in school. Tell me, what animals were you subjected to doing that to? For me, I remember in 8th grade, it was an earthworm. And in 10th grade, it was a frog. I know that they also had fetal pigs in. Hi, Richard. Welcome. Thanks for being here tonight. I know that in 10th grade, I think the more advanced biology class, they did fetal pigs because I remember seeing them in the glass jars in the classroom, but my class didn't do that. We did the frog. And I was equally horrified, both doing being presented with an earthworm with the little sticks at either end, um, securing the poor dead worm to the little pan, right? And then in 10th grade, same thing with the frog. And so I didn't my teachers at the time, and I don't know the date on this, when New Jersey started allowing other opportunities or alternatives, but when I asked my teachers about it, I was told to go back to my desk and to the lab table and to just get on with it. But I didn't actually do any of the dissecting because I just couldn't bring myself. And I wasn't a vegetarian or vegan at that point. I just couldn't fathom cutting into an animal like that. Even, they were dead, but it was too much for me. So thankfully, we had partners, and I happened to be paired with people both times who were willing to do the dissecting part if I was willing to write the report about the dissecting. So we struck a deal that way, and so that's how I got out of actually having to perform the dissection, but I still had to be part of it. And that was really tough for me. I remember really being horrified by it. And I was no less horrified doing research for this talk tonight. Um, like I said, had known about pigs, but some people have had to dissect cats. Um, hey, Diane, thanks for being here. And for any of you who have just joined, we're talking about dissection and alternatives to dissection. So I'm happy to hear your stories. Let's be in this together. And if you were subjected to having to dissect animals when you were in school, let me know if you'd like to share your story. Um, so yeah, there's like cats, and I found out that the most common vertebrate animals that are used for dissection are frogs, fetal pigs, and cats. And the most common invertebrates are earthworms. So, like, I had to do, my class did earthworms in 8th grade: earthworms, clams, sea stars, and squid. Um, so I was surprised and not surprised when I learned that the dissection industry is very much a horror, just like the animal agriculture. And the focus is get the most animals cheaply and sell them at the most profit to the schools for the dissection. And so what does that mean? That means that um, they've got to find these animals somewhere. And uh, I was reading that sometimes, like especially with cats, that they have educators have reported that they during the dissection they found microchips or within the animal. Within their stomach, that like a piece of a toy or an actual toy that the cat would have swallowed, proving that these animals had once been someone's companion. Sometimes shelters, after animals have been euthanized, especially cats. There's a number of cats. There's an overpopulation in the U.S. for sure, of cats that end up in shelters and then are euthanized because there's just no room. Those euthanized animals are sometimes sold to these biological supply companies, and then um, they're able to purchase these euthanized animals at a very low cost, and then they sell them to a school for dissection at a much higher cost. Um, so, no surprise there that there's exploitation happening, right? They also sometimes are taken from the natural habitat. Frogs and the other invertebrates can sometimes just be taken from nature. And I didn't know this, but some schools they dissect mink, and those mink come from fur farms. So the animals have been skinned, and their bodies left to die. They're left to die after being skinned, and then those bodies are sold to be dissected. Um, I don't know if that happens at like a university level where you're dissecting mink. I'd never heard of that before. But I did look at the American Anti-Vivisection website, and PCRM were my two sources. So I'll post some links closer to the end where you can just look at some of that information there. Uh, so I'm happy to report that New Jersey, the state that I live in, is one of 17 where now there are what they call student choice policies. And what that means is that if you are in a class where dissection is expected, you have the option and the opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to do this. And your teacher has to respect that. And your teacher has to provide you with a different project. Um, by the way, dissection is not mandated by any education accreditation. There's no actual science requirement for dissection. Many of the educators, when asked about why they still do it, it's simply because, well, that's what we've always done. And we all know what that gets us when our response to the reason why we do something is because we've always done it that way. It's never an acceptable response. We are supposed to learn and we're supposed to grow and we are supposed to change. And so to say that we are just doing it because that's just what we do is not acceptable in this situation or any other, really. Um, yeah, so let me see. You guys have any questions about this? There are some amazing alternatives so drop questions about this in the comments while I'm talking. Don't be shy. You got questions. I may or may not have the answers. We'll figure it out. Um, Also, slaughterhouses will sometimes provide the fetal pigs. So, if a pregnant pig is being sent to slaughter, they will just cut out the fetuses, and they can be sold to um, these biological supply companies. This is, I talk about some hard stuff sometimes here, but when I was talking to my husband about this topic earlier tonight, and just was kind of giving him an update on the research that I'd done and some more information that I'd found, and the two of us, like, we hit a point where we were like, okay, this is enough. This is like, it's like, is there no end to the way that we will abuse, misuse, and exploit animals? Like, where does it stop? if you think about these animals that are being used for dissection, sure, Richard. Yep, I'll actually get to that after I make this point. Thank you. Um, these animals used for dissection are this is a one-time thing, right? They die and then they are used to be like cut open and their bodies are fondled by kids essentially, right? I mean, I can remember that there were certainly kids in my class, and I don't know who or what has become of them since that time, but that were not respectful at all to these animals that they were dissecting. I mean, it just it just seems so awful. And it's so unnecessary because the studies will show that these alternatives that I'm about to talk about are so much more helpful and educational than dissecting, an animal uh, that that had once been alive. Okay, so there are so many options. There are different like molds or mannequins, they call them. They even have I saw a cat one, and it's in one of the links that let me just post these links now. Don't get too distracted, looking at them right now. Save the research for after we're done. um, so there are some websites. So Animal Learn is actually this really cool thing. They have they're part of the anti-vivisection. By the way, vivisection is animal testing. They're part of the anti-vivisection society. Animal Learn is like a subgroup of that, and their sole focus is providing alternatives for students who don't want to dissect. And they have free resources through their science bank that is link number 2. They have free resources where you can borrow, and teachers can do it too. So it doesn't have to just be an individual person saying like my kid doesn't want to dissect, or I don't want my kid to dissect. What are the options? Like schools can actually reach out to Animal Learn, and they can be loaned for free these different resources that they have. And so they have mannequins that have that have the elasticity, I guess, of the skin and things like that, and then little you know organs inside that the students can take out and look at and start to understand the placement of things. And and there's no trauma. So keep that in mind, like how many kids have been traumatized by this having to cut into an animal like that, so there's no trauma because you have this like little mannequin that is not a previous live animal. There are tons and with technology now, there are apps that you can get right on your iPhone, right on your iPad, and that you can look inside and like really just get in the detail is incredible. um and then there's others. It's called I think it's Digital Frog 2.5, I think it is. And it's an online thing, and you actually use like a digital scalpel to cut into a digital frog, and you can see all the organs and like a description of everything that you're looking at. And so there's still engagement. It's interesting. There's no, you can learn about the inner workings of creatures other than humans without the trauma that students can suffer, and also without having, more importantly, not using animals, not really like desecrating their bodies after they've died. Um, so I think that um, also in one of those links is a map, so you can look at if your state is one of the states that allows student choice, and if not, there are ways to go about, starting with your own school if you're a parent, or if you're a student and you want to talk to your parents about, talking to the leaders in your school, principal, your board, the school board, about starting to lobby for that student choice. Um, there are effective ways to talk about this, and you can, you can start to gather other people who are in agreement with you, and start to have a conversation about why it's important, about why it's not needed anymore. The technology that we have now is so amazing that way, and we can do so many things without having to harm um, animals, and create different apps and different programs for computers and things like that, where we're not taking these animals and hurting them, or using their bodies in ways that, for me, I think we shouldn't, and we don't need to. All right. um yeah, so I mean, if you have any questions, please post them here in the comments. Um, if you are a person who would like to start kind of like working on, a presentation, or a kind of a talk to get people on board, with ending dissection in your school, or working up at the state level, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Um, okay, so if there are no questions, I I think that'll do it for this evening. It was a quick one, but I think we covered the most important things, like the horror of dissection, and the fact that there are really cool alternatives where students are actually more likely to learn and be able to be engaged, without actually, you know, um, participating in that harming of themselves and of animals. Obviously, the animals are dead when they come to the school, but they weren't before. And I'm having a very hard time being articulate about this tonight. Uh, I tried really hard to organize my notes so maybe I could keep the emotion at bay, but that does not seem to be the case this evening. So I appreciate you hanging on and letting me do my thing anyway. So thank you for being here. Um, as always, if you have questions, if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future fireside chat, you can send me a message through the Virtual Veg Fest fireside chat site, or you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Did You Bring the Hummus, and you can message me there. You can also go to my website. It's scrolling on the bottom there, and you can submit, any questions or comments there as well. I also am launching a new course, which starts on October 19th. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out here at my website. I'll paste that in the chat there. So if you're interested in that, please send me a note, or go ahead and sign up there on the website. Next week, I'm talking about Halloween candy and, Halloween festivities and whatnot. So that'll be a lot more fun than this episode tonight. But these things are important, and, more important even than Halloween candy, believe it or not. So anyway, thank you as always for being here. I am honored to do this work, It is the most important thing that I think I could possibly do. So thank you. And I will see you next week. Have an amazing week ahead. Good night.